We're about to call the meeting to order in just a few minutes. Thank you. All right, I want to say good evening to everyone. This is the calling the meeting to order. This is the regularly scheduled Community Benefits Committee meeting for November the 20th, 2013. I am the chair, Michael J. Bond, Post 1 at large. I apologize for the late start, but we now have a quorum, and I'd like to ask the members to introduce themselves, starting from on the end down there from my right and the audience left. Just introduce yourself and please tell them your appointing authority.
Howard Beckham, President, English Avenue, Vine City, Ministerial Alliance. Dexter Johnson, Chairman of the Vine City Civic Association, Senior Pastor, Body Ground Empowerment Center.
Susan Mayer, Marion Street Artery Association.
Charlotte Wilson-Jacks, Director of the Office of Planning.
Ivory Young, Atlanta City Council, District 3, resident, Vine City.
Yvonne Jones, NPUL Chair, English Avenue, Vine City.
Ernestine Gary in West Atlanta.
Katrina Taylor Parks, Office of the Mayor.
DeMarcus Peters, English Avenue Neighborhood Association.
Councilmember Cleta Winslow, District 4.
Makeda Johnson, Westside Tad, MLK Merchants, and Vine City resident.
Kyle Kessler, Atlanta Downtown Neighborhood Association.
Is that everyone? Okay, first item is the adoption of the agenda. I entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. Properly moved, is there a second?
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, our agenda is adopted. First item on our agenda is public comment. Do we have the public comment sign-in sheet? Can someone bring the sheet forward, please? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sarks. Okay. The public, as I call your name, please step forward. You have exactly 2 minutes to speak. And I will, if you exceed the 2 minutes, I will cut you off. It's not because I don't want to hear what you have to say, but we have to accommodate every person who signed up on the sign-up sheet and treat everyone equally and give them the same opportunity. I will not start the clock until the person is actually at the mic and beginning. If someone asks you a question, I will not hold the question against your time. The first person signed up to speak is Carrie Salvery.
Good afternoon. My name is Carrie Salvery, resident of Vine City, and I'm going to speak from a document that has been circulated to the committee. I believe it went out on Monday. Good afternoon, members of the committee. The following areas of concern with the proposed substitute plan for a community benefits plan to be forwarded to the Atlanta City Council for approval. Based upon the concerns as outlined below, the plan should not be moved onto council until all of these concerns, as well as others, are addressed in a manner that is satisfactory to the residents and stakeholders in the affected community. Number one, the existing plan represents a wish list of ideas and concepts with no implementation strategy, timelines, or benchmarks for anticipated outcomes. There are no evaluation criteria or measurement instruments proposed to track the activities or outcomes. A suggested tool would be the outcome measurement framework used by the United Way and HUD to evaluate and track outcomes required by their funding allocations. There is no prioritization of activities. How do we know what's going to happen and when? There's nothing stated in the plan as proposed that binds anyone to do anything on the wish list. Also, there's a lack of clarity as to who will fund what. The plan does not lend itself to a comprehensive revitalization of the impacted neighborhoods of Vine City, English Avenue, and to a lesser degree, Castleberry Hills. The plan appears to ignore the downtown South neighborhood. Finally, there are too many unanswered questions. Time?
No, 10 seconds.
Okay. Finally, there are too many unanswered questions and ignored concerns for the proposed framework plan to move forward to the Atlanta City Council for approval. One statement, I hope that these neighborhoods will be treated with the same care and concern as the Braves Stadium neighborhoods.
Perfect. On your time, Ms. Salve. Next is Bishop John Lewis.
John Lewis, resident of Vine City and a native of Atlanta, actually born in that community. I stand tonight to represent not only myself, but 5 other organizations that I am a part of. Historic Westside United Coalition in Cobra, the African Orthodox Church, Cosmopolitan EME Church, and other entities that I'm involved with in the community. I wanted to share tonight some excerpts from a letter that was written in 1993 by Mrs. Dorothy Bowden. Neighborhoods and communities with history are becoming increasingly rare and extinct. It is the citizens of these neighborhoods and communities' responsibility to keep history ongoing and not to let it die. Our community at this very moment is marking history. We are fighting for what is rightfully ours, our homes, our neighborhood, and most importantly, our history and our heritage. Vine City is a long-standing community with 100+ years of history. To destroy our community is to destroy the legacy of many who contributed to the equality of man throughout this nation. Our cries to continue to exist have gone unheard. How can we select a few? How can we select a few with the flick of a pen totally destroy the foundation of our neighborhood and teaching our children and our children's children to not respect our heritage and our history? Why is it that we are so willing to condemn and destroy before we assist? Maybe our actions are interpreted by our youth as tear it down, don't build it up. And if it's in your way, remove it. And I'm saying tonight, please do not sign this agreement.
Thank you. Next is Mike Dobbins.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Mike Dobbins. I teach planning and urban design at Georgia Tech. I'm concerned about a number of technical issues that have not been resolved to the point where this committee should be in a position of taking a position on an agreement. First of all, there's not been a comprehensive transportation impact study that affects the neighborhoods. That should be carried out. I suggested last time that this should go before the Atlanta Regional Commission as a development of regional impact for reviewing transportation impacts on all the impacted areas. Similarly, stormwater has not been resolved as a plan, and these are two elements that can go into an agreement where the city and the Falcons and Invest Atlanta bind themselves to carrying out a transportation impact study and a stormwater impact study. The other area that I would call to your attention is that the committee's action should involve the whole of the project, not just the $15 million. This is now a $1.2 billion project, and specifically the jobs program that Penny McPhee outlined a couple of meetings ago should be written into an agreement between the city and the Falcons and Invest Atlanta to be carried out pretty much the way she described it. And I think the most important part of all is to come up with a strategy that employs people who need jobs from these neighborhoods. So with that, I would say I would encourage you to get that information prior to taking any action on the issues before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is, looks like Stephen Causley. Oh, I'm sorry, no. Mr. Causley, you will follow Amin Babatunde Abdullah. Sorry, I skipped ahead.
What's going on? I'm Babatunde Abdullah. I'm from Washington Park. I just walked from Washington Park. Come up here to say what I had to say. But, okay, like, I don't have anything wrote out.
Yeah, please talk directly into the microphone.
Yeah, I don't have anything wrote out or nothing like that. But I was saying, like, we should start like a nonprofit organization with the people in like the Vine City, English Avenue community, like to actually fix up all of those abandoned houses and like make our neighborhood look a lot better. And then put the people in that community in those houses, because there's no purpose of having old decayed rotted houses sitting around when you got when there's homeless people sitting down there at the same time. They can actually fix it up. That's all I really want to say.
All right, thank you. Stephen Causley.
Good evening. Thanks for the chance to address you. My name is Stephen Cosby, and I'm a 10-year resident of English Avenue. I'm also chairman of New Life Covenant Church, which is based in the English Avenue community. I'm here tonight to speak in favor of this committee adopting a binding community benefits agreement that would guide the expenditure of funds on efforts in the stadium-adjacent communities. None of us has to be a student of history or of urban planning to know that major sports facilities across the country are more often than not planned for and constructed in overwhelmingly lower income and minority communities. The impacts of these new uses are rarely given full attention up front. The same is true with the Georgia Dome. Promises made at the time of planning and construction of this facility have been unrealized to a large extent, and the assistance that has been given by the city and other agencies is not the kind of assistance that's been needed for years to help these communities experience a true, organic, and comprehensive renaissance. Let us be clear. The challenges that English Avenue and Vine City face are of a regional nature, not the Atlanta region, I mean the southeastern region of our country. The drug trafficking, prostitution, and violent crime that plague our streets are on par with some of the roughest neighborhoods in America. So to say to us that this major facility will be built right next door and funds that could be brought to bear to improve quality of life for residents and visitors will be allocated based on a general plan is simply an insult. Atlanta, we need you. We need for you to understand the challenges of our communities and that these challenges demand a thoughtful, robust response. The details of our proposed community development agreement are clear and comprehensive, and I ask that you seriously consider it in your actions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, first name, it looks like Jamel Mick something. First name Jamel? Or something similar?
My name is Jamel McDowell, and I moved to this community like 4 years ago. And when I moved there, I heard a lot of bad things about the neighborhood. I have a business downtown Atlanta on 321 Edgewood Avenue, where the streetcar is coming up, and we've been going through a lot of different changes and going through that. And this is another change that I'm going through. But I'm here for the long haul, and I want this community to survive, and I know it can come back around. I'm in an older home. I want to rebuild this home. I see everything in the neighborhood that's going on, but these things can be helped. The people around here can help each other. This community can come together, and we can work this thing out to improve this environment that we're in. don't give up on English Avenue in Vine City. I'm in here for the long haul, and I'm going to continue to work through everything that I need to do to make this thing possible. Thank you.
Thank you. The next is, the last name is, looks like Wilfort. Wilhort, last name. Person coming forward. Okay, next is Hattie Dorsey.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here to, I guess, follow up the request of other members that have spoken to reemphasize that we need an agreement and not a plan. The document that is being circulated does not have objectives of how to reach any of the activities that you have listed that needed in the community. I don't disagree with that, but the how-tos have not been explained. This is incomplete. I ask you to take the time to complete it and not pass it this evening.
Thank you. Next is Tony Torrance.
Yes, Mr.
Okay. Yes. Excuse me. My name is Chef Dr. Will Hoyt, and a good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm representing America's Soul Food Museum, which covers over 400 years of contributions by African Americans in the food and hospitality industry. And we are extremely concerned about the Vine City area. We would like to be a part of the area and bringing the area together and making sure that we have what we need in order to have a viable community. I don't know what is being passed tonight, but I do want to make it be known that those who have additional issues that need to be addressed, be addressed. It's very important that we listen to everyone who has issues. But I want to thank you for the Soul Food Museum, for considering the Soul Food Museum. We're looking forward to being a part. God bless you. Keep up the good work you're doing. You're on the right track. Just finish it. We got to go forward. We need to make this thing happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Latron Price.
Hello. My name is Latron Price. I work with Joe Beasley Foundation, also with Antioch Baptist Church, and many other organizations in the city, particularly in Vine City area. What I'm here to talk about tonight is something so critical as it relates to the economic business model of the community. I've organized a company called American Sales and Distribution, and that is a food distributor, a meat distributor, that distributes Georgia-grown meats, lamb, goat, beef, poultry, seafood, proteins directly to communities. We compete directly with US Foods and Cisco. And our model is based on the consumption of food, particularly goat, to be reinvested into that community, into the community. What makes our situation very unique is, for those who read the King James Version of the Bible, our inspiration was born out of this presentation, out of the Bible, particularly Genesis chapter 1. When Christopher Columbus left Spain, he landed in Hispaniola, he brought the King James Version of the Bible. And that was the living document. And today it's still a living tool, an instrument that works in the Western world, in this world. In chapter 1, verse 26, it said, "Let us make man in our image after our likenesses and let him have dominion over the fish of the seas." That's all the tilapia. That's all the mahi. That's all the tuna. Over the cattle, over the fowl of the air. That's all the chickens, all the hens, all the birds, all the turkeys. Over the cattle. That's all the cows, mules, lamb, goat, beef. Over the minerals. That's the copper, tin, zinc. So what that is when a European came to North America, he came with a business idea of trade. And so my point I'm trying to make here is that we need to incorporate the cost of living, particularly food consumption, and have a business in the community that's from the community that is distributing the food, particularly in that community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Linda Adams.
Good evening. Good evening. Linda Adams, resident of Vine City. I just wanted to say thanks for the hard work that the city has done for my neighborhood and for this body up here who has been listening for the last months or so as to what it is that the community residents, true community residents, stated that they wanted. So I'm hoping that you all would vote on this framework that's coming before you tonight, because those things that's in there is what the people have said they wanted in the neighborhood. If there's any changes that needs to be made, I'm sure that that body, your body, this body, will listen to it and make any adjustment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Muhammad.
Thank you, Councilman Bond, for allowing me to have a few words and speak at this time. The thing is, wow, I thank you all. Well, I don't know a whole lot about anything other than Scripture, what it says in the Bible, and what God has to say about situations. That's the only thing I really can stand on. And there's a story called Balaam's Ass. It's a story about a donkey who carried an idol. And in carrying this idol, every day through this small town, they worshiped the donkey, and people threw rose petals at the donkey's feet, and palm leaves, and Hosanna, Hosanna on the highest. And then one day the donkey came through without the idol on his back. And the people took sticks and whips and beat the donkey. And he could not understand why he was getting beaten at that time. Well, it's because he was carrying an idol, and people worship that idol as God. And right now, this stadium is being worshiped, and Arthur Blank is being worshiped like an idol. This whole thing is idolatry in terms of what it is. There's so many mixed emotions around it that people are getting confused on. But the thing of it is, the donkey that carried it got beaten when he didn't have the idol. And some people are gonna get beat up and hurt when the idol is no longer on their back, because they're carrying the water for Arthur Blank. So what I would like to say is that this is a good thing, because it has risen up so many voices from the community. And these voices will not go back under a rock. And it creates a better Atlanta because it's more community oriented. And I think that what's going on is a good thing, because the more voices for truth you have, the more voices for righteousness you have, the better our people will be. And I thank you so much, Councilman, for allowing me to have those few moments. God bless you all.
God bless you as well. Next is State Representative Abel Mabel Thomas.
Thank you very much, distinguished members of the committee. First, I'd like to acknowledge the work that's been done by the committee. And at the same time, the biggest room is always a room for improvement. And so I think we do have some other work to be done. I sort of come today with a sort of a heavy heart, because it's like some people say that this is like a meeting of a showdown. And I sure don't want to be at a showdown, because there's no need to be at a showdown, because the people should be victorious, because that's how history goes. Ultimately, at the end of the day, whatever oppression comes on the people, ultimately, the people united will never be defeated. And so the people are calling out to members of this committee to understand that what is on the table now, which is called Framework Draft 4, is unacceptable. It's unacceptable for many reasons, but mainly it's unacceptable because it doesn't say anything. It doesn't say anything. It even is called framework. But the community that I live in, English Avenue, Vine City, we don't need a framework, we need an agreement. Oh, y'all, anybody with me?
That's right.
Everybody from the English Avenue, Vine City area, or was told to come here by a community person, please stand up. Come on. Stand up. Let's give y'all some hands. And I just want to say again, I mean, this gentleman here, I told him about the meeting, he told me he had an idea. And I said, come to this meeting, you can tell your idea. But when I got there, when I got to my location, he wasn't there. And guess what I said? Business is business. I have to go. But if you want to stretch yourself as a young man from English Avenue, Vine City area, walk to the City Hall and make your statement. He walked in the door, he said, Mabel, I'm here. So what we're talking about is the revolutionary spirit of young people walking from Vine City, English Avenue, because they don't have no bus fare. They don't have no job training. But I told them it was a meeting that they could say something, and he came. That's significant, and I don't want, let's give them a hand again. Come on, y'all, encourage each other. Encourage each other. That's what it's about, encourage each other. People came from churches all over the neighborhood, just maybe some came 5, 6, but they came because they knew this was important to me. But it's not important to me for us to act like we hadn't made a contribution. English Avenue, Vine City is a very historic area, made contributions. We don't even have to call a roll on the people that growed up in that area, but why don't we call it? What about Gladys Knight, James B. Brawley, English Avenue? What about Martin Luther King, Sunset, Vine City, Coretta Scott King? What about Maynard Jackson? They say Ashley Street, Sunset, all right? What about Horace T. Ward, Judge Horace T. Ward, Ashley Street, Q.B. Williams, mostly known Martin Luther King. Give me one, Wilson. Herman Cain, presidential candidate, United States President. English Avenue. Julia Bond, state senator, educator extraordinaire, one of the leading thought leaders of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. E.M. Martin, president of Atlanta Life. J.C. Doherty. Did I miss somebody? Say one over here? I think I missed. What the bottom line is, this is not any old neighborhood. This is the neighborhood of the greats. Dorothy Bolden, that's what it was, Vine City. And I think that was great what you read, what Dorothy Bolden said in 1993. It's as relevant today as it is back then. Are y'all with me? Bottom line of this story is that really the community wants an agreement. And agreement should be whatever we need to have it with, which is city developers, Arthur Blank, Falcons, whoever we need to have it with, we can get the framework legally to make it happen. Because without agreement, what we have is a framework. And I'm here to tell members of this committee, most of you college educated, you cannot, in good conscience, vote for a framework when a community is demanding an agreement. A community is demanding a revitalization. There's a video that's out. Have y'all seen it? In one part of the video, it says, English Avenue, historic English Avenue in Vine City, hidden in Clearview. Oh, y'all didn't hear me. How can two neighborhoods be hidden in Clearview? So we came today to say we are not hidden anymore. We've showed up. We love each other. We love y'all. But this community got new people coming in like this young lady who's a business owner. You don't even know. You don't even know. You got LaTron coming here talking about 50 jobs right off the bat that he's talking about with sales. You don't even know. We got people in this community, Puncho. Now I don't go Puncho straight from the street. But you all right with me, Puncho? All right, and you said I told you to be at my house, right? At 4:30, what time were you there? 3:30. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. We don't have to bring everybody from the neighborhood, but we did bring a sample. We can bring more, but we still need to keep bringing more. What they said in their simple ways and their complex ways is what we're trying to say. Do not vote today to pass a framework out. Does not speak to the heart of the people, does not speak to the integrity of the people, does not speak to the needs of the people, but most of all, it does not speak to the investment that the people in these communities have made to the city and the state of Georgia. We are not asking for a handout.
30 seconds.
We are asking for a hand up and to be partners with you as we build a great city. We ain't mad at Arthur Blank and all the money he got, but the reality is this, you want to stay and you want to inconvenience everybody in these neighborhoods, and we done talked about mitigation, but it ain't been handled. Lots of things we've talked about has not been handled. And more than anything, we don't know what's going to happen, and for some reason, this group never wanted to talk about projects. I cannot understand how you can have a revolution and not talk about projects. Our neighborhoods need projects and human capital, human services. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you. Next is, it looks like Reedy as the last name? Reddy, I'm sorry.
Good evening, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak. My name is Chicha Reddy, and first I'd like to say I am a recipient of Invest Atlanta, and I bought a house in June in the West End. I'm also the administrative pastor of Faith, Hope, and Deliverance Temple in English Avenue area. We're located right on the corner of James P. Brawley and Joseph E. Boone. I want to say, yes, we do need an agreement that will be true, righteous, and just. The plan should not move forward to the council because I feel of the limited input of all that's concerning the matter. The churches in Vine City and English Avenue need to have more input because of the services needed in our communities and to provide viable solutions. We can build beautiful neighborhoods with all of the splendor of green spaces and landscaping, but the churches will be the ones that will be held responsible for preparing the people for what is coming.
Thank you. Next is Tangi Allen. Tangi Allen. Okay. Next is Hubert James, looks like Hubert James Jr.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I've been reflecting on what I wanted to say here today. You know, I remember, well, first of all, let me say, I represent an organization called NCOBRA, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, which basically deals with the issue of repair. How do we heal from the situation we find ourselves in? I remember some years ago talking to a friend of mine about how we could resolve the problem of homelessness in Atlanta, and the city could invest money in building like dormitory structures and allow the homeless people to live there and have situations where people could get fed and things like that. And I remember my friend responding to me that the city doesn't have the money to do that. And shortly after that conversation, we started hearing about the new Turner Field that was getting ready to be built. And I was like, wow, that's a whole lot of money they're about to spend. And you say that we don't have the money to deal with homelessness. So it's really not about the money, it's about the will, it's about the vision, it's about the desire to do what's right in the community, to do what's right by people in the community. What are we committed to do? This is a great opportunity. I see a great opportunity. I drive through Vine City on a regular basis, and I see the homes, I see the community, English Avenue, and to me, this is a really great opportunity to build a stadium, but also to rebuild a community. The community is saying we need a legal binding agreement so that this can happen. These are the desires of the community, and I think that it's possible, and I know that it's possible and it can be done. You know, to be given the business that he has, Arthur Blake, you know, you would think that rebuilding the homes in that community and making it a model community would be a great vision. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is I'm sorry, Mother Mamie Moore. Mother Moore. She's coming.
Good evening, committee members.
Good evening.
Good evening, citizens. All those who came tonight as a result of an outreach from somebody, please stand. Those from English Avenue and Vine City, and those that have your signs, stand up and stay for 2 minutes. You are my statement. Hold your signs up. You are my statement. Don't be afraid. Stand up, hold up your signs. You are my statement. Hold them high so the committee can see them.
Mother Moore, your time has elapsed, but I'd like to warn you, the City Council does not allow demonstrations or signs to be displayed in the council chambers. That was a joke, because you all have already done it. Already accomplished that. Next is Kwanzaa Fisher.
Good evening. My name is Kwanzaa Fisher, and I'm here with the Center for Education Culture. It's a nonprofit organization that I started to help close the achievement gap for youth here in Atlanta. I myself am a native of Atlanta, product of Atlanta Public Schools. And I'm here today to tell you about a proposal that I submitted to members of the Community Development and Human Resources Committee. And this proposal was for implementation of a youth entrepreneurship district in the Vine City area. And basically what this is a cluster of 3 to 8 buildings that will be dedicated to youth entrepreneurship and provide youth entrepreneurs retail, flea market, office space for youth entrepreneurs between the ages of 14 and 25. And it also includes services such as business counseling, coaching, and consulting. I've identified some investors who are interested in buying buildings for this very purpose, but they're interested in seeing what kinds of incentives they can get from the city. I know one includes the West TAD tax credit, and I'm here to petition your committee to consider allotting some funds to this project in terms of covering the cost of managerial services or other services that may be of interest to these investors. And I just wanted to say that the push for youth entrepreneurship is something that has been supported by the White House. I've gone to the White House as a champion of change as a youth entrepreneur, so I know that it's something that they do actively support. And I do believe that if we could start something like this, Atlanta could be a real hub for youth entrepreneurship and a leader in the region. And then myself as a youth entrepreneur, I know the barriers that we face, access to space, access to capital, access to basic services like business counseling and mentorship. So I do want to encourage you that when you do decide how to allot the money.
Time.
I'm sorry?
You're at your time.
Oh, okay. I thought I was going to get 10 seconds. All right, thank you.
You finish your statement.
I just wanted to say, when you do decide to allot the money, consider something that will be meaningful and that's going to be lasting and that will cater to those who are really trying to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Thank you.
Thank you. We've exhausted our speakers list. We're now down to the next item, which is the Community Benefits Plan. Is that the presentation? Okay. Ms. Gary.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we have been talking about the Community Benefits Plan. Last week we talked about the framework, and we asked members of the community and members of the committee to provide feedback to us between last week and this week as we continue to hone this document and try to make it as substantial as possible. So I'd like to take a few minutes with the committee members. You have notebooks in front of you, and we try to put everything in the notebooks that we have discussed over our last 7 meetings, today being our 8th meeting. So in the very beginning of your notebook, just to kind of go through that very quickly, you've got the resolution that's been introduced to City Council. The second tab is the actual Community Benefits Plan. And then you have the exhibits, which are exhibits to the agreement. And there are about 10 or 11 exhibits, and it includes everything that we've discussed over the last 5 months, including descriptions of the Community Improvement Fund, which is the $15 million coming from the TAD, the Westside TAD Allocation District. The $15 million coming from the Blank Foundation is another exhibit. The Memorandum of Understanding that Invest Atlanta has with the Blank Foundation is another exhibit. The original City Council legislation that was passed in March of this year is included as an exhibit. The Westside TAD Neighborhoods, Vine City and English Avenue Neighborhoods Strategic Implementation Plan. This was the study that was done by Jesse Wiles and the APD group. That's included as an exhibit. The presentation that we heard last week from the communities as a whole was very helpful to us as we finalized the plan. So that is included as an exhibit. That's Exhibit H. And then the meeting before that, Castleberry Hills did a presentation, and we've included that as an exhibit. The concepts list, which is concepts, initiatives, and also specific projects that we have heard from various members of the committee, that's included as an exhibit. And I mention all of this to let you know that we've listened very closely to what we've heard from the community in terms of the types of projects and initiatives that you would like to see to help to redevelop the community, and we've tried to incorporate those in the plan itself. So if you look at the plan, Article 1 really just describes the purpose of the plan. And this language was taken from the legislation, the City Council legislation. Article 2 is the definitions. Article 3 really begins with the recommendations, the plan recommendations. And we divided these up into categories. If you remember when we went through the scope of work exercise, we had about 8 to 10 different categories that we realized every activity fell into. And so the first category under Section 3.01 was the Community Resource Center, Job Training and Workforce Development Programs. And this was, obviously a priority for the community. We want to make sure that we're creating jobs and providing opportunities for residents to get the necessary training, the necessary education, the necessary job skills so that they can apply and get these jobs, whether they are stadium-related jobs or whether they are jobs with other projects that are going to be done in and about the community. So under that, we've got categories for place-based training, soft skills development, and youth jobs programs. Section 3.02, once again, this is anticipated to be in a community resource center, the business incubator. Well, we heard a lot of feedback in terms of opportunities for entrepreneurs to hone their skills and to have capacity building activities. A business center that would include a computer lab with internet and faxing capabilities. Opportunities for small business development, a microloan program, historically underutilized business zones, and arts initiative. One of the things that we realized as we gathered all this information about the Community Resource Center is that, everything may not be under one roof. We know that there are organizations already in the community that are providing a lot of these services. We want to continue to support those organizations. And so we may have one building that handles job training. We may have another building that handles health and other related activities. Another one maybe that handles the youth programs. So we're not locked into anything at this time. We're really trying to be open to what we receive in applications and ideas from the community. Under education, what we heard from you was that you wanted comprehensive education programs, a GED program, an education fund to help those who are financially strapped, a technical school, and internship and apprentice programs. We think that that's really going to be impactful as we try to move residents into some of the construction-related jobs or jobs that require a specific skill. And then ex-offender reentry programs for those who may have a history that has prevented them from applying and receiving job opportunities. Section 3.04, youth programs. We know that there's a need for early child care. We heard from Ms. Penny McPhee, president of the Blank Foundation, a few weeks ago, and she talked about this being one of the activities that the Blank Foundation is very interested in, getting our children early and teaching them basic skills so that when they get ready for pre-K or they get ready for kindergarten, they already have a leg up and they're already well on the way. After-school programs, a recreation center is something to give our youth opportunities for after-school activities, and a youth nutrition program. Under section 3.05, health and wellness program. And here the need was mental and behavioral health, a health clinic, comprehensive drug alcohol treatment program, food pantry, and birthing center. And I did have the opportunity to tour the Neighborhood Union Health Center with Makeda Johnson this week, and was really, really pleased with the activities that are going on in that health center. We actually provided about $3 million in TAD funds for the build-out of the new wing several years ago and the renovation of the existing wing. And so when we think about a health center, it's important to realize that we don't want to reinvent the wheel. If we've got a building that's already functioning and there are things that we can do to support that and enhance what's already there, that's definitely what we want to do. Catalytic projects, these would be projects that would be impactful and would really help to increase the tax base in the community. So what we heard was development of the commercial districts, and activities that are directly adjacent to the new stadium project. More high-density use along Northside Drive. We want to promote the hospitality industry. We all know the vibrant hospitality school that Morris Brown College had years ago, and they were really the only entity in that area of town that was providing education in that arena. And we've got just a growing restaurant and hospitality industry here in Atlanta, so we'd love to see hospitality return as a component of community benefits. Retail development, we want to encourage that, whether it's a merchant mart, whether it's a grocery store, other retail development along our corridors is critical. Transit-oriented developments, Vine City and English Avenue sit at the hub of two transit stations, Ashby and Vine City, and so we want to take advantage of that. We know that a lot of residents may not have cars, and so if they are close to a transit station, it makes it a lot easier for them to get to work. So we want to encourage retail development around our transit stations. Section 3.07, assemblage and land banking. I mentioned the grocery store. So if you didn't hear me the first time, I did mention the need for a grocery store. We know that Walmart has groceries, but we also know that the community wants options, and so if we can receive another grocery store, that would be great. Assemblage and land banking. We heard from one of our public speakers that we've got a lot of vacant property in Vine City and English Avenue, that some of it's boarded up, some of it's not. We want to make sure that we address that and rehabilitate the properties that we can. If we need to acquire them and put them in the land bank for future development, once we can come up with a master plan, we want to do that. If they are at the point where they need to be demolished, then we want to have a fund to actually demolish and think about how do we rebuild on that space that's productive for the community. And creating a community land trust. I sit on the board of the Atlanta Land Trust Collaborative, and one of the things that we focus on is creating permanent affordable housing by controlling the land. So the land trust actually owns the land, and housing can be developed on top of that land, but it always is owned by the land trust, and that would preserve affordable housing for the long term for the community. Under affordable housing creation and preservation, we know that we have a lot of seniors, homeowners, whose homes need fixing up, and they may not have the financial capacity to do that on their own. They may not want to borrow more money at this point in their lives. And so through the TAD funds, we want to create an opportunity for seniors to get funds to rehabilitate their homes, seniors and low-income homeowners. The vacant housing strategy we already talked about, workforce housing and new senior housing for our residents. So some of the multifamily, the smaller multifamily units, if we could rehab those and make them available for rent for seniors, for those seniors who want to move into a new apartment or perhaps move out of their home into an apartment, that's certainly something we want to consider. Green renovations, non-displacement strategy. We don't want to do the type of redevelopment that would keep our current residents from being able to stay in their homes or continue to reside in the community. So we definitely want to create that. And cooperative housing. along with a strategy to help current homeowners avoid paying higher taxes if property values continue to rise over the next few years. Under environmental mitigation, those of you who were around for the 2002 floods know that that's a subject that the community has continued to talk about and continue to encourage us to come up with ways to make sure that doesn't happen again as we redevelop in the community. So we're looking at stormwater and water resource management, a construction mitigation strategy as the new stadium is constructed, brownfield assessment and remediation, environmental protection division study, and environmental education. Section 3.10, transportation infrastructure and improvements. And here we heard a lot. And so we wanted to put all of these concepts in here. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything is going to get funded, because if you look at everything throughout the 8 or 9 pages of this document, we know that that's a lot more than $30 million. But we wanted to include all of these possibilities because we're going to continue to work to identify additional funding sources. And as we go through the application process, as we receive projects for funding, we're not sure which ones are going to get approved first, which ones are going to move forward first, but we definitely wanted to include them as possibilities. So you've got everything here from traffic management to a bike share program to sidewalks, traffic calming measures, promenades, lighting. We definitely need better lighting. Reestablishment of the street grid and vehicular and pedestrian connectivity, and ADA compliant accessibility. So those are, I think we have about 10 to 15 concepts here under transportation infrastructure and improvements. Right, and Katrina Taylor Parks made a very good point, is that when we look at these infrastructure improvements and even the stormwater mitigation, these are projects that would not be funded out of the $15 million Westside TAD or out of the Blank Foundation money. So we would identify either city funds or possibly other Westside TAD dollars to pay for those improvements. And so we want the $15 million to really go for the neighborhood-related projects. Zoning, we're going to look at our current zoning and look at what we do and what we need to do in order to improve zoning as we redevelop the community. Under safety and code enforcement, we know that we need increased police presence, special event parking. We heard very loudly from the Castleberry Hill group that we need to do more to control the tailgating, the parking, the noise. And so we've been working on that and have that here as a concept. Resident permit parking and code enforcement 7 days a week, along with better sanitation, security cameras, a neighborhood watch program, signage, and courtesy officers. Under historic preservation, you heard from one of our public speakers how important it is for us to preserve not just our historic landmarks, such as the Herndon homes and homes along Sunset, but also we want to promote heritage tourism so that people can understand the history and appreciate the history of Vine City and English Avenue and Castleberry Hill. Green space and urban agriculture. Here we talked about everything from walking trails to linear parks to converting dilapidated properties, community gardening and urban farming, pocket parks, food truck market, and green streets. And we have talked about technical assistance because we know that there's a need for either organizations or individuals that have a project or have a vision or own a piece of land and they really want to develop it, but they're not quite sure how to move forward, and the application process could be quite daunting. And so we're willing to pay for the technical assistance that you would need in order to get your application strong so that it can compete when it is submitted. We're looking to start taking applications, I'm hopeful, by somewhere between the middle to the end of December. Today was the deadline for those who were interested in providing technical assistance to submit their applications or their proposals for that. So we will receive those, evaluate those, create a list of technical assistance providers, and once that application process is open, they will be able to help those who want it, who are willing to pay the $100 fee. That's what the client pays, and Invest Atlanta will cover the rest of the cost for the technical assistance, up to 40 hours, out of the Westside TAD funds, because we want to make sure that we're not just encouraging big catalytic projects, but we're also helping the smaller community organizations with projects that they'd like to receive funding for. And the last thing I'll mention under Article 5 is reporting. We don't want the passage of the plan by City Council to be the end of our conversations. We realize that there is still a lot of work to be done. We want to make sure that we are reporting back to you, the community, so we want to continue to have meetings with the committee and with the community to kind of let you know how we're progressing with the applications, with the approval, with the planning for the neighborhoods. And we will be reporting back to Community Development and Human Resources also on a quarterly basis, because I can tell you that council is going to, hold our feet to the fire just like you will in terms of, what are you producing, what's happening, how are the funds being dispersed, how are the projects coming along. So that's going to be an ongoing process. And that is the plan. Councilmember Bond.
All right, thank you, Ms. Garrett. What we'll do is ask the questions. We'll just start at the end and work our way back all the way across. But I want to acknowledge we've been joined by the distinguished councilwoman from District 9, the Honorable Felicia Moore. She's in the chamber somewhere. Felicia? Would you all give her the correct and appropriate adulation? Thank you very much. So we'll start on the end and just work our way down on any questions.
Yes, I really just only have one question, and it was not covered in the presentation that Ms. Geary just made. There's been a lot of talk about an agreement and a plan. We went from an agreement to a plan to a framework. The mayor came and visited us at a meeting and said that we would develop a plan, and from that we would go to an agreement. And I just haven't heard that in the conversation at all tonight from this end. And that's my question. When do we get to an agreement?